Bangkok, 2019. The city never really slept. Neon lights, crowded markets, and endless traffic masked something darker. In the middle of that chaos, a crew was moving quietly, preparing for a job unlike the usual smash and grab. They weren't locals. They entered Thailand under tourist visas, blending into the flow of travelers who came for beaches and nightlife. But this group wasn't here for sightseeing. Each man carried a skill that made the team complete. One was the technician, precise, patient, with hands steady enough to drill through steel without hesitation. Another was the driver, always calm, always ready to vanish into Bangkok's endless grid of streets. A third handled logistics. Tools, rental apartments, fake names, untraceable phones. Together, they were more than criminals. They were specialists, treating each hit like an operation. Unlike armed robbers, they didn't crave confrontation. No weapons, no hostages, no wild threats. Their target was always the same. ATMs. Machines full of cash, waiting on quiet street corners or dimly lit gas stations. The crew approached each one like surgeons. They carried drills, portable power, and custom-made bits designed to eat through metal. They knew exactly where to cut, exactly how deep, and how long they had before alarms screamed. For weeks, they lived like shadows. Cheap apartments paid in cash. Cars rented under false identities. Moves calculated so they never stayed in the same neighborhood twice. Their days were empty, their nights filled with maps, notes, and quiet rehearsals. To the outside world, they looked ordinary. Foreigners sipping coffee, smiling at waiters, pretending to be part of the endless wave of tourists. But inside the crew, there was no room for leisure. Every detail mattered. Every mistake could mean prison in a foreign land, or worse, being trapped with no escape. And yet, tension grew. Success had made them confident. They had already pulled off several hits in different provinces. Each time, the machines fell open. Each time, they slipped away without a trace. But in their line of work, the longer you stay invisible, the closer you come to being seen. The city around them pulsed with noise and distraction, but beneath it, the crew prepared for another strike. The next ATM was already chosen. The drill bits were sharpened. The clock was ticking. The plan didn't come overnight. It was built piece by piece, the way an architect sketches a blueprint before laying a single brick. The technician had studied ATMs across Southeast Asia for years. He knew their weak points, where the steel was thin, where the lock could be bypassed, where the wiring ran like veins under the surface. Not every machine was worth the risk. They needed models that carried enough cash, with alarm systems slow enough to react. The driver scouted locations. He spent nights circling neighborhoods, parking near gas stations, convenience stores, and shopping plazas. He watched which streets were busy, which ones went silent after midnight. He measured the distance to highways, counted how many cameras pointed toward each corner. Every detail went into the calculation. The fixer arranged everything else. Apartments rented under false names. Cheap cars that could blend into Bangkok traffic. Burner phones that would never ring twice. Even tools were carefully chosen. Drills imported in parts, disguised as construction gear, carried quietly through customs. Nothing could look suspicious. Nothing could connect back to them. The crew worked like clockwork. Meetings were short, precise, always behind closed doors. No drinking together, no loud talk in public. They communicated in fragments, hand gestures, quick notes, looks that carried more meaning than words. But beneath the discipline, there was anticipation. Each man knew what was at stake. A single successful drill could yield more than months of small jobs. One mistake could end everything. The target was chosen. An ATM on the edge of the city. Not too central, not too remote. Cameras limited, police response slow, but cash guaranteed. It was the kind of machine people ignored during the day and forgot about at night. They drew maps, timelines, entry and exit routes. They rehearsed how long it would take to breach the safe inside. 2 minutes if everything went right, for if the steel resisted. The driver would keep the engine warm. The technician would drill. The fixer would handle the cash. They even planned for silence. Cigarettes unlit until after the job. Phones powered down. Faces hidden beneath caps and masks. Every movement rehearsed. Every second accounted for. When the night came, they wouldn't improvise. They would execute. And yet, no matter how perfect the plan seemed, there's always something you can't control. Midnight in Bangkok. The city above still moved, but the street they had chosen had gone quiet. A single convenience store light buzzed in the distance. The rest was shadows. The van pulled up slow, no headlights, no sudden noise. Inside, 3 men sat in silence. Gloves on. Masks ready. The driver kept the engine running, low hum, steady, ready to roll. The technician stepped out first. He carried the drill case as if it were nothing more than a toolbox. But inside was everything. Custom bits, portable batteries, tools wrapped in cloth to silence the clatter. He didn't waste a second. He crouched before the ATM, his hands moving like a surgeon. The fixer stood close, scanning the corners. A watch on his wrist, eyes on the clock. Every tick mattered. They had rehearsed this moment a dozen times in their heads. The drill bit touched steel. A sharp whine filled the air, then softened as the sound was swallowed by the city's hum. Sparks spit in the darkness. The technician pressed steady, cutting where he knew the safe was weakest. He leaned in, slow, controlled, feeling the resistance of the metal. 2 minutes. That was the window. In and out before alarms triggered. Before any passing eyes noticed something was wrong. Sweat formed under the masks, dripping despite the night air. The driver tapped the wheel nervously, eyes on the rearview. A motorbike passed, then disappeared. The street fell quiet again. The technician drilled deeper. The fixer wiped the sparks with a cloth before they could scatter too far. The smell of burning metal mixed with cigarette smoke from someone across the block. Too close, too risky, but there was no turning back. A shift in sound. The drill bit broke through. A hollow thud echoed inside the safe. He pulled back, adjusted, pushed again. The steel gave way. One more push, and the opening was wide enough. The fixer reached in with practiced hands, pulling stacks of cash wrapped in plastic bands. Quick, efficient, no fumbling. He dropped them into the bag, zipped it shut, pressed it flat. The technician sealed the hole with tape, just enough to delay suspicion. From a distance, the machine looked untouched. To the untrained eye, nothing was wrong. 3 minutes. They were already late. The driver leaned on the horn. A sharp signal. The crew grabbed the bags, slid into the van, and the doors slammed. Tires rolled slow at first, then faster, blending into the city's endless stream of traffic. Another ATM had fallen. Another night survived. But in the rush, in the pressure of seconds, a mistake was made. Something small, almost invisible, left behind without notice. At first, they thought it was flawless. The machine looked untouched. The cash was safe inside the van. No alarms chased them, no flashing lights. Another night, another score. But mistakes don't scream right away. They whisper. It started with a detail so small none of them noticed. When the technician drilled, his glove slipped for a moment. He steadied himself, carried on and thought nothing of it. But that second left a trace. Ash from a cigarette, carelessly flicked too close to the machine, mixed with tiny metal shavings. To the naked eye, it was nothing. To investigators it was a trail. By morning, the ATM company flagged irregularities. Technicians arrived, expecting a routine malfunction. Instead, they found a drilled lock, patched clumsily with tape. A cover-up that only made the breach more obvious. They shut the machine down and called the police. Surveillance footage was checked. Cameras didn't catch faces, but they caught shadows. A van idling too long. A figure crouched where no one should be. Investigators slowed the footage frame by frame. Inside the crew, tension rose. The fixer noticed patrols circling more often. The driver felt eyes in the rearview mirror, even when the streets were empty. The technician sharpened new bits but his hands trembled more than before. Whispers of doubt spread. Had they stayed too long in one city? Were the police closing in? They argued over the next move. One wanted to flee to another province. Another insisted they keep working. One more job, maybe 2, then disappear. What they didn't know was that detectives had already begun to connect the dots. Every ATM hit across Thailand showed the same surgical precision. The same drill marks. The same pattern of escape. The cracks weren't visible to them yet. But the chase had already started. The investigation moved faster than they imagined. Thai police brought in specialists, men trained to study the smallest details. They sifted through every ATM breach across the country. The pattern was undeniable. Same method, same timing, same precision. The cigarette ash became the breakthrough. Forensics pulled it from the drilled machine, matching it with DNA on file. Not local. Foreign. That single trace turned suspicion into a manhunt. Checkpoints spread across Bangkok. Police scanned rental records, cross-referenced vehicles, and tracked movements through CCTV stitched from dozens of cameras. The crew, once invisible, was now a shadow under constant watch. Inside their apartment, paranoia took over. The driver wanted to burn the van and scatter. The fixer insisted on staying calm. No sudden moves, no panic. The technician sat silent, replaying the sound of his drill in his head, knowing that slip, that fraction of a second, had changed everything. They noticed plainclothes officers at cafes, cars parked too long on the street. Doors closed louder. Steps echoed heavier. The city felt hostile. One night, as they prepared for another hit, the argument boiled over. The driver refused to go. The fixer shouted that walking away meant leaving money behind. The technician broke the silence. It's already over. And he was right. The net had closed. Police raided safe houses in 2 districts at once. Doors splintered. Men were dragged out, bags of cash seized, drills laid out on evidence tables under bright white lights. Some tried to run. They didn't get far. Bangkok streets, once their escape routes, had turned into traps. The crew that had moved like ghosts was finally visible. Interrogations ran for days. The men kept silent at first, but the evidence spoke louder than they could. Drill marks identical on every machine. Rental contracts signed under false names. Bundles of banknotes traced back to stolen ATMs. And that cigarette ash, the detail that cracked everything wide open. One by one they confessed. Some out of fear, some because they knew there was no way back. The technician admitted to his method, describing in chilling detail how each lock had been drilled. The fixer revealed the logistics, the apartments, the phones, the cars. The driver, exhausted, said only one line: "We thought we were smarter than the city." Court followed quickly. Sentences were heavy. Years in prison, far from home, with no chance to disappear back into the crowd. The money was seized, stacked high for cameras in a press conference meant to show the country's strength against crime. And then silence. The crew that had traveled across Thailand drilling ATMs with surgical precision vanished into records and prison walls. Their story reduced to headlines. Their freedom traded for steel bars. What stayed behind was the lesson. It wasn't brute force that caught them. Not alarms. Not guards. Just a trace, a cigarette, burned down to ash, left where it never should have been. One careless second. One invisible mistake. And the entire crew collapsed.